Whispers in the dark Prisha Mehara stared at the rain trailing down the living room window, each droplet racing another to the bottom of the glass. 4 years of marriage to Naveen had taught her to appreciate these quiet moments alone. As a renowned conductor who traveled frequently with various orchestras, her husband's absences had become as much a part of their rhythm as his presence. The apartment felt particularly empty tonight. Naveen was in Vienna for a week-long engagement with the Philharmonic there. She'd grown accustomed to the silence, even welcomed it sometimes, a chance to hear her own thoughts again. After the cacophony of the music school where she taught piano, Prisha moved from the window to the kitchen counter where Naveen's tablet lay forgotten. He'd left in such a rush that morning that he'd taken his old backup device instead. She smiled, remembering how flustered he'd looked searching for his passport. Some things never changed. A notification chimed, an email. Without thinking, she tapped to clear it, but her finger slipped, opening his voice messages instead. She was about to close it when an unfamiliar voice caught her attention. "Naveen, it's Rohan. Everything's set for Thursday. Remember, we agreed this stays between us." Divya doesn't need to know yet. It would break her heart. 4 years is a long time to keep something like this hidden. But you're doing the right thing. Prisha's hand froze above the screen. Divya? Who was Divya? And what had Naveen been hiding for 4 years? The entire length of their marriage. She played the message again, analyzing each word, each inflection. The man's tone wasn't conspiratorial, but somber, almost sad. Thursday was tomorrow. Naveen wasn't supposed to return until Sunday, except now that she thought about it, his schedule had shown some inconsistencies lately. He'd mentioned post-concert meetings that ran late. Phone calls he took in the hallway, voice lowered. Small discrepancies in stories about where he'd been. Prisha set the tablet down, her mind racing. She'd never been the jealous type, had never felt the need to question Naveen's devotion. Their relationship had been built on mutual respect and trust. At least that's what she'd believed. She poured herself a glass of wine, trying to quiet the drumbeat of doubt now pounding in her chest. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps Divya was a musician, someone from the orchestra with personal problems? But 4 years of secrecy? The rain intensified, drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. Prisha took her phone and hesitated, finger hovering over Naveen's contact. What would she even say? "I accidentally heard a cryptic message that suggests you've been living a double life?" Instead, she opened their photo album, scrolling through images of their life together. Naveen at the piano in their first apartment, eyes closed as his fingers caressed the keys. Their honeymoon in Santorini, his arm around her waist as they watched the sunset. Last Christmas with her parents, Naveen laughing as her father tried to teach him traditional Indian cooking. Had it all been a performance? The thought made her stomach twist. The doorbell rang, startling her from her thoughts. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially not at 9 p.m. during a storm. Through the peephole, she saw a woman she didn't recognize. Tall, elegant, early 40s perhaps, sheltering under a black umbrella. "Can I help you?" Prisha asked through the door. "I'm looking for Naveen Kapoor," the woman replied. "It's important." Prisha's heart sank to the floor. "He's not here." "Who are you?" A pause. "My name is Divya Sen. I believe your husband has something that belongs to me." Shadows of doubt. The name hung in the air between them like suspended dust. Divya Sen, the woman from the voicemail. Prisha's fingers trembled as she unlatched the door, unsure if she was making a terrible mistake. "Please come in," she managed, stepping aside. Water dripped from Divya's umbrella onto the welcome mat as she entered, her eyes quickly scanning the apartment. "You have a beautiful home," Divya said. She was impeccably dressed in a charcoal business suit, her silver-streaked black hair pulled into a tight bun. "Naveen has good taste." "He's in Vienna," Prisha said, watching the woman's reaction carefully. "Until Sunday." Something flickered across Divya's face. Surprise, perhaps disappointment. "Vienna? Are you certain?" That single question unraveled something inside Prisha. "Why don't you tell me what's going on? Who are you to my husband?" Divya placed her handbag on the coffee table with deliberate care. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Naveen and I have a professional relationship." "Professional enough to keep secrets for 4 years?" Prisha couldn't keep the edge from her voice. "I heard the message from Rohan." The woman's composure slipped momentarily. "You weren't supposed to find out this way." "None of you were. None of us? Are there others?" Prisha felt dizzy. She sank onto the sofa, clutching its arm for support. "That's not what I meant," Divya said quickly, remaining standing. "Look, I should go. This is between you and Naveen." She retrieved her bag. "Tell him I stopped by. Tell him Thursday can't wait." After Divya left, Prisha spent hours pacing the apartment, her mind constructing and discarding scenarios. By morning, she'd made a decision. She booked a flight to Vienna. The Austrian capital welcomed her with crisp autumn air and the distant sound of classical music drifting from street corners. The hotel where Naveen always stayed was near the concert hall. She gave his name at the reception. "I'm sorry. We have no guest by that name," the concierge informed her with Austrian precision. "He's conducting with the Vienna Philharmonic this week," Prisha insisted. "Naveen Kapoor," the concierge checked again. "Madam, there is no Naveen Kapoor registered, and according to our concert calendar, the Philharmonic is performing with Maestro Bergman this week." Prisha's world tilted. She thanked the man and stumbled outside, pulling out her phone to check Naveen's social media. His orchestra's page showed posts about the Vienna concert series, but no specific mention of Naveen. His personal page hadn't been updated in days. She called him. No answer. She texted, "Where are you, really?" 3 agonizing hours later, her phone buzzed. "Home emergency!" Had to fly back early. At Hotel Meridian in Mumbai. "Everything okay? Mumbai? Not Vienna? Not even their home city of Delhi?" Prisha's heart hammered. She replied simply, "Fine, busy with students." She booked the next flight to Mumbai. The Hotel Meridian was luxurious but discreet, catering to wealthy business travelers. Prisha approached the reception in the evening, exhaustion warring with determination. "I'm meeting my husband, Naveen Kapoor," she told the receptionist. "Of course, madam. Room 1142, shall I call up?" "No," Prisha said. "I want to surprise him." As the elevator climbed, Prisha wondered what she would find. Another woman? A secret family? The possibilities tormented her. Room 1142 was at the end of a hushed corridor. She knocked, her knuckles barely making contact with the door, almost hoping he wouldn't hear. But the door opened, and there stood Naveen, his expression transforming from casual expectancy to absolute shock. "Prisha? How did you—" He was dressed casually, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Behind him, she could see papers spread across the bed, a laptop open. "Who is Divya Sen?" she asked, the question burning her throat. "And why have you been lying to me for 4 years?" Naveen's face drained of color. He stepped back, allowing her to enter. "You should sit down," he said quietly. "This is going to take some time to explain." On the hotel desk sat a framed photograph she'd never seen before. A young boy, perhaps 12, playing violin on a makeshift stage. The boy looked startlingly like Naveen. "Her name is Divya Sen," Naveen began, his voice strained. "And she's the woman who destroyed my brother's life." The unexpected truth. The hotel room felt too small for the weight of Naveen's words. Prisha sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what he was saying. "I never told you much about my brother Vikram," Naveen continued, pacing between the window and door. "He was a prodigy, a violinist with more natural talent than I could ever hope to have. By 16, he was being courted by conservatories worldwide." He gestured to the photograph. "That was his first major performance at the All India Youth Music Competition. Vikram was just 12 there." "I don't understand," Prisha said. "You told me your brother died in an accident when you were young." Naveen's laugh was hollow. "That's what my parents told everyone." It was easier than admitting the truth. Vikram didn't die in an accident. "He's alive technically." He sat beside her, hands clasped tightly together. 15 years ago, Divya Sen was an up-and-coming music producer with a reputation for discovering young talent. She approached Vikram after that competition, offered him everything: international tours, recording contracts, the world. "My parents were cautious, but Vikram was enthralled." Naveen's voice thickened. 6 months later, Vikram was found unconscious in a hotel room in Singapore. Heroin overdose. He survived, but barely. The brain damage was significant. He's been in specialized care ever since. Prisha reached for his hand instinctively. Naveen, I'm so sorry. But I don't understand the secrecy. Why couldn't you tell me? Because I've been gathering evidence against Divya Sen for 4 years, he said, opening his laptop. She didn't just discover young musicians, she exploited them. Introduced them to drugs, manipulated them psychologically. When they burned out, she moved to the next prodigy. The screen showed spreadsheets, emails, testimonies, a meticulous archive of destruction. Rohan Mathur was one of her victims, too. He's been helping me. Thursday is when we're meeting with prosecutors to file formal charges. We've identified 17 victims over 2 decades. 17 young lives she damaged or destroyed while building her empire. Why keep this from me? Prisha asked, hurt evident in her voice. At first, it was because I didn't want to burden our new marriage with my family's darkest chapter. Then, as I dug deeper into Divya's world, I discovered how dangerous she could be. People who threatened her had accidents, lost jobs, had their reputations destroyed. I couldn't risk her discovering my investigation through you. Naveen closed the laptop. My conducting tours these past few years have mostly been meetings with victims, lawyers, gathering evidence. I've been living a double life, but not the kind you feared. Prisha absorbed this. The relief that he wasn't unfaithful mingling with anger at being excluded from such a significant part of his life. You should have trusted me. I know, he admitted. But there's more. Divya has connections to powerful people. When she realized we were building a case, she began retaliating. That's why I'm in Mumbai. We had to move Vikram to a new facility after a suspicious medication error last week. She came to our apartment, Prisha said suddenly. Last night. Looking for you. Naveen's face paled further. What did she say? Exactly? As Prisha recounted the brief encounter, Naveen began throwing things into his suitcase. We need to go. Now. If she knows where we live, she might know about Vikram's new location. Naveen, slow down, Prisha said, grasping his arm. You can't do this alone anymore. Whatever happens next, we face it together. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded, the burden of secrets visibly lifting from his shoulders. Together. But first I need you to meet someone. An hour later, their taxi stopped outside a private medical facility on the outskirts of Mumbai. As they walked through quiet corridors, Prisha prepared herself for what she would see. Nothing could have prepared her for the reality. In a sunlit room sat a man in his early 30s, physically strong but with vacant eyes, methodically drawing his bow across violin strings, producing not music, but random, discordant sounds. Over and over, the same motion, the muscle memory of a gift that his damaged mind could no longer access. This is my brother, Naveen said softly. This is Vikram. Broken harmonies. The 3 days that followed blurred together in a storm of activity. Prisha watched as the man she thought she knew transformed into someone else entirely, a strategist, a crusader, his usual gentle demeanor replaced with fierce determination. They moved Vikram to another facility under a false name. Naveen and Rohan, whom Prisha finally met, a soft-spoken former pianist with trembling hands, finalized their evidence for the prosecutors. Prisha found herself standing guard outside meetings, making coffee for late-night strategy sessions, learning the vocabulary of a legal battle she'd had no idea was brewing in the periphery of her marriage. You should go home, Naveen told her on the second night, as they reviewed documents in yet another hotel room. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you married me, she replied simply, and kept it my fight by hiding it. The hurt hadn't disappeared, but it had evolved into something more complex. Watching Naveen with Vikram, the tenderness with which he adjusted his brother's blanket, the patience as he helped him hold the violin properly, revealed a depth to her husband she'd never fully appreciated. On Thursday morning, as they prepared to meet with the prosecution team, Prisha's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Mrs. Kapoor? The voice was clinical, urgent. This is Dr. Jadhav from Sunrise Care Facility. There's been an incident involving your brother-in-law. Vikram had disappeared during a fire alarm evacuation. Security footage showed a woman matching Divya's description, talking to an orderly shortly before the alarm sounded. Naveen's face when they received the news was a portrait of contained devastation. This is my fault, he whispered. I should have known she'd find him. We'll get him back, Prisha promised, though she had no idea how. The meeting with prosecutors was postponed. Instead, they filed a missing persons report that seemed to generate little urgency from authorities. Adults with diminished capacity often wander off, one officer explained with practiced sympathy. That evening, as Naveen made frantic calls to contacts throughout the city, Prisha sat alone in their hotel room, staring at the photograph of young Vikram. The boy's eyes held such promise, such joy in his craft. She thought of her own music students, their unformed potential, their vulnerability. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Central Park Hotel, room 415. Come alone if you want to see him again. She showed it to Naveen, who immediately began calling Rohan, planning an approach with police involvement. We don't have time, Prisha argued. If Divya suspects police, who knows what she might do? Let me go first, gain her trust. Absolutely not, Naveen said, fear evident in his voice. You don't know what she's capable of. Neither do you, really, Prisha countered. You've been collecting stories from others, but you've never confronted her directly. I have. She talked to me. Maybe she'll listen. After heated debate, they compromised. Prisha would go to the room with Naveen and Rohan in the lobby. Police would be on standby, but not visible. The Central Park Hotel was older, less prestigious than Divya's usual haunts. Prisha knocked on room 415 with steady hands, her heart racing beneath her calm exterior. Divya opened the door, looking considerably less polished than at their first meeting. You're not as naive as he thinks, she said by way of greeting. The room was small, with worn furnishings. No sign of Vikram. Where is he? Prisha asked, remaining near the door. Safe, Divya replied. For now. Your husband has been quite troublesome, Mrs. Kapoor, digging into ancient history that benefits no one. 17 ruined lives isn't ancient history, Prisha said. It's a pattern of abuse that continues today. Divya laughed, the sound brittle. Is that what he told you? That I'm some monster preying on innocent children? The music industry is brutal, Mrs. Kapoor. I gave those young artists opportunities they would never have had otherwise. What they did with those opportunities was their choice. Vikram was 16, Prisha said quietly. A child. Something flickered in Divya's eyes. Regret, perhaps, or merely calculation. Vikram was special. What happened to him was unfortunate, a tragedy, but not my responsibility. Then why take him now? Why interfere with Naveen's case? Divya moved to the window, peering through the curtains as if checking for surveillance. Because your husband doesn't understand what he's doing. His vendetta threatens more than just me. There are powerful people involved, sponsors, investors, politicians whose children I've mentored. If this case proceeds, many lives will be ruined. Lives have already been ruined, Prisha said. Including yours, I think. The woman turned sharply. What do you mean? I've been watching you, Prisha said, taking a calculated risk. You're scared, not just of legal consequences, but of something else, someone else. For the first time, Divya's composure fully cracked. You have no idea what's at stake. I never wanted to harm anyone. It started small, a little something to help with performance anxiety. Then it became expected, demanded. By whom? Prisha pressed. Divya shook her head. It doesn't matter now. What matters is that your husband drops his case publicly. In return, Vikram will be returned safely. And if he doesn't? Then I can't guarantee what will happen next. Divya's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowning. We're out of time. Tell Naveen he has until midnight to make a public statement withdrawing his allegations. As Divya moved toward what appeared to be the bathroom door, Prisha made a decision. She lunged forward, wedging herself between Divya and the door. You're not leaving until I see Vikram. The struggle was brief but fierce. As they grappled, the bathroom door swung open, revealing not Vikram but a thin, nervous man with a tablet computer. We have to go now, he urged Divya. They've traced the call. In the confusion, Prisha managed to grab the tablet. On its screen was a live video feed of Vikram, sitting alone in what looked like an abandoned building, still mechanically playing his silent violin. Composing Together dawn broke over the city as Prisha and Naveen sat side by side in uncomfortable plastic chairs, watching Vikram sleep peacefully in his hospital bed. The past 12 hours had been a blur of police raids, statements, and finally, miraculously, Vikram's recovery from an abandoned music school on the city outskirts. Divya had escaped, but her associate, a technician named Prakash, who had handled the digital aspects of her operation for years, had been apprehended. His testimony, combined with the evidence Naveen and Rohan had gathered, was enough for authorities to issue a warrant for Divya's arrest. "He recognized me," Naveen said softly, his eyes fixed on his brother's face. "When we found him. Just for a moment, but I swear he knew who I was." Prisha squeezed his hand. "I believe you." The doctors had been cautiously optimistic. No new damage had been done during Vikram's abduction, and being back in a familiar environment, surrounded by music, had seemed to stimulate neural pathways long dormant. It wasn't a miracle, they warned, but it was something. "I keep thinking about what might have happened if you hadn't been there," Naveen said. "If you hadn't insisted on confronting her directly." "And I keep thinking about the past 4 years," Prisha replied. "All the nights I spent alone thinking you were just devoted to your career. All the times I could have been helping you, supporting you." Naveen turned to face her fully. "I thought I was protecting you. And maybe myself too. I didn't want you to see this darkness in me, this obsession, this anger. It didn't fit with who I wanted to be for you." "But that's the problem," Prisha said. "You decided who you wanted to be for me instead of letting me love who you actually are. All of it. The light and the dark." Outside the hospital window, Mumbai was waking up, streets filling with morning commuters, vendors setting up stalls, life continuing its relentless forward motion. In the quiet of the room, something shifted between them, a recognition that their marriage hadn't been what either of them had thought it was. "What happens now?" Naveen asked. "With us, I mean." Prisha considered the question carefully. "Now we start again. No more secrets. No more protected spaces. We learn each other all over again." Over the following weeks, that's exactly what they did. As the case against Divya Sen built momentum, more victims coming forward, more evidence emerging of a network that extended far beyond one. Ambitious producer Naveen and Prisha rebuilt their relationship on a foundation of painful honesty. He showed her everything, the nightmares that had plagued him since Vikram's overdose, the guilt he carried for not recognizing the signs sooner, the rage that had fueled his investigation. She shared her own fears, of never being important enough to know the whole truth, of building a life on partial disclosures, of losing the man she thought she knew. 3 months after Vikram's rescue, they sat together in the small garden of his new care facility. The weather was warm, the air scented with jasmine. Vikram sat nearby, his hands moving more purposefully across his violin strings. The sounds were still discordant, but occasionally a phrase emerged, a snippet of melody, quickly lost but definitely present. "His doctor thinks he might be rebuilding neural connections," Naveen explained. "Music is still in there somewhere, trying to find its way out." Prisha watched the brothers, one broken but healing, one whole but transformed. "Like all of us," she said, "trying to find our way back to the music." That evening, as they prepared dinner in their apartment, a normal domestic activity that now felt precious in its ordinariness, Naveen's phone rang. It was Rohan calling with news. Divya Sen had been apprehended at the Nepal border. "It's over," Naveen said after hanging up. "She'll stand trial. All of it. Everything Vikram suffered, everything the others suffered. It won't be forgotten or denied anymore." Prisha saw the complex emotions crossing his face. Relief, vindication, but also a certain emptiness. "What will you do now?" she asked. "When you've spent so long focused on one purpose?" Naveen considered this. "I think I'd like to establish a foundation. Something to help young musicians navigate the industry safely. Something to honor what Vikram lost." "I'd like to help," Prisha said. "My students could benefit from that kind of protection." They worked late into the night, planning, dreaming, not just about the foundation, but about their future together. A future built not on perfection, but on truth, not on protection, but on partnership. 3 days later, they visited Vikram again. As they approached his room, they heard something that made them both stop in the doorway, scarcely breathing. Vikram sat by the window, violin positioned correctly for the first time in years. From his bow emerged not random sounds, but the halting, fragile beginning of a Bach partita, the first piece he had mastered as a child. The notes were tentative, some missed entirely, but the structure was unmistakable. Music finding its way back. Naveen gripped Prisha's hand so tightly it hurt. Neither spoke, afraid to break the spell. They stood together, listening to the broken melody, imperfect but beautiful, like their newly honest love. A composition still being written, note by painstaking note. In that moment, Prisha understood what had drawn her to music in the first place. Its ability to contain both harmony and dissonance, to make something meaningful from chaos. Like life, like love. Vikram faltered, the music stopping. He looked up, seeing them for the first time. A glint of recognition flickered in his eyes. Not complete, not yet, but possible. Everything was possible now. Play with him, Prisha whispered to Naveen. Play together. Naveen hesitated, then moved forward, picking up a spare violin from the corner of the room. He positioned himself beside his brother, raised his bow, and began the piece again from the beginning. After a moment, Vikram joined. Their sounds intertwining, one strong and sure, one fragile and searching, but somehow creating a whole greater than either could alone. Prisha watched the brothers play, these two men shaped by the same trauma but expressing it differently. And she understood that this was what it meant to truly love someone, not to idealize them or protect them from truth, but to stand witness to their broken places and still find the music within. Outside, the city continued its chaotic symphony. Inside, a smaller, more intimate composition unfolded, a family finding its way back to harmony, note by imperfect note.